And it's just like you see on television. You crank the car up, and the bomb goes off.
The masked man came up to him and shot him execution style at point blank range.
I mean, in every homicide investigation, what people don't realize, all the dirty laundry is going to come out eventually.
This time, killing for cash. Contract guys, hitmen. For cops, tracking triggermen is tough. Finding out who bought the hit is tougher. And piloting the perpetrators to prison can be toughest of all. These people solve murders. They're homicide detectives. They're federal agents. They're major crime specialists. And this is Catching Killers.
Everyone appreciated her kindness. She was a very bright lady.
This is Anita Spearman. And this is Bob, her husband. Things look pretty good for the Spearmans. Thriving business, beautiful house. But all is not well inside this waterfront mansion. The Palm Beach Sheriff's Office gets a call. Detective Bill Springer takes the case.
He got up early. He always gets up and he goes and gets his wife something to eat. He returned home. He discovered her dead in the bedroom. He immediately called 911. They examined the house, determined that there was no signs of any forced entry, and she appeared to have been beaten to death. There was some defensive injuries. I think some bruising on her hands, which be indicated that she put her hands up to protect herself.
The crime scene looks like a robbery gone wrong.
The jewelry boxes were opened, some of the drawers were pulled open, and the shotgun was missing.
Springer and his team scour the scene, but the killer leaves no trace. The detective puts some tough questions to the grieving husband. Bob Spearman insists he has no idea why someone would hurt his wife, and claims his marriage is solid.
In interviewing Bob Spearman and him telling me he had no relationship with any other females, it would have been a lot better than for us to find out that he was actually lying to us.
Springer presses Spearman.
Our investigation revealed that the affair that Bob was having was an ongoing affair, that he was having it prior to Anita's death, and that it continued on after her death.
It might spell motive, but keeping a mistress is not a crime.
I mean, in every homicide investigation, what people don't realize, all the dirty laundry is going to come out eventually.
For now, though, Bob Spearman's alibi checks out. Springer takes a closer look at the robbery angle.
Based on the fact that there was no signs of forced entry to the house and that she was actually murdered in bed, it just didn't appear to be a burglary.
A new theory takes shape.
And the motive of that person was to murder Anita Spearman.
Canvassing the neighborhood, cops chase down a lead.
We interviewed the newspaper delivery person. They advised that they observed an individual. The description of the person was a white male wearing camouflaged clothing.
A stranger in strange clothes bears checking out.
It's a residential area, but like I say, they stood out. They thought it was unusual to see somebody that hour of the morning.
But police can't locate a person in army fatigues. Springer falls back on a trusted technique. He finds one. 90 days earlier and 600 miles north, investigators in Georgia work to solve a shooting. In the upscale suburb of Sandy Springs, Georgia, there's been another execution-style killing. Investment banker Richard Braun and his son Michael are leaving to run errands.
They were coming down the hill when a masked gunman jumped out from behind some trees and had a machine pistol with him and started machine gunning them.
Michael was actually hit in the leg. His father opened the driver's door and rolled out of the car.
The masked man came up to him and shot him execution style at point blank range. Michael started to try and crawl off. The masked man came up to him.
And Michael begged for his life, literally. And the gunman then put his finger to his lips and said, "Shh, be quiet." And then the gunman ran off into the woods.
This gunman also wears camouflage clothing.
These cases seemingly were unrelated, but ultimately it turned out it was a house of cards just waiting to be knocked down.
In this exclusive Atlanta neighborhood, there's been a shooting. In the crosshairs is socialite Lita McClinton Sullivan.
Lita was a very attractive, very positive, upbeat person, always had a smile on her face, always left a room with friends behind.
Lita's best friend Poppy and her 7-year-old daughter have spent the night. A little after 8 in the morning, there's a knock at Lita's front door. Enticed by a flower delivery, Lita opens her front door. The stranger holds out a box.
He pulls out a gun, fires 2 to 3 shots.
The first shot misses. The next bullet travels through the box and into Lita's temple. The killer turns tail and runs.
There was a woman later identified as Margaret McIntyre was driving down Sladen Drive. He exited so fast he ran into a path of a vehicle, and she saw the shooter as he left.
A neighbor in a nearby yard also witnesses the commotion.
And Bob Christensen, the next door neighbor to Mrs. Sullivan, got a good look at the subject, and he was also the first to render aid to the victim, Mrs. Sullivan.
Lita is rushed to the hospital. Poppy calls Lita's parents, Emery and Joanne, and tells them their daughter's been shot.
She was later pronounced dead that morning at Piedmont Hospital. I do believe her mother was with her at the time.
Major Welcome Harris of the Atlanta Police is among the first on the scene.
The first thing I noticed when I entered the condo was the flowers laying at a distance from the doorway in a pool of blood. Also, there were several shell casings. It was obvious to us, became obvious that Mrs. Sullivan had retreated from her attacker.
Major Harris interviews the eyewitnesses. Margaret McIntyre and Bob Christensen report that the shooter is a tall white man, mid-40s, wearing gray pants and a green jacket. Then Harris interviews Poppy Marable.
Mrs. Sullivan had advised a friend that on Tuesday night prior to the shooting that someone tried to gain entry and she heard a loud knock on the door. However, she did not open the door. And it's my opinion, based on my investigation, that it appears that could have been possibly the first attempt to do her harm.
Harris hears about Lita's difficult divorce. He calls Lita's estranged husband, Jim Sullivan, in for a talk.
Upon interviewing Mr. Sullivan for the first time, he said he didn't have any idea of anyone who might want to harm his wife.
With initial questioning done, Welcome Harris turns to the physical evidence: spent shell casings and a box of blood-drenched roses.
So what we did, we started canvassing and put a lookout to canvass all the floral shops in the immediate area of Sladen Drive.
Police locate a florist just a half mile from the shooting. The florist recalls selling roses to a shady character.
He gave us a description of the driver of the vehicle, white Toyota, and the purchaser of the flowers.
The florist works with a sketch artist to create a composite drawing of the customer. Atlanta detectives release the sketch to the media.
You go with what you got when you initially start investigating any crime.
Welcome Harris tracks the comings and goings of the grieving husband.
Mr. Sullivan appeared to have a strained relationship with his in-laws, and we theorized that partially could be because of the divorce proceedings that were ongoing, And but even at that still didn't make him a murderer.
But that doesn't stop Harris from checking out Sullivan's phone records.
We were particularly concerned about the telephone records of Mr. Sullivan. So what we did, we requested his telephone records through the Florida authorities.
Those records reveal Jim Sullivan's been keeping a big secret. Investigators hunt the killer of Anita Spearman, whose brutally beaten body is found in her West Palm Beach mansion. Witnesses report an unfamiliar man fleeing the area.
The description of the person was a white male wearing camouflaged clothing.
A few hundred miles away, businessman Richard Braun also dies, machine-gunned in his own driveway. FBI Special Agent John Kingston presses for more detail from Braun's traumatized son, Michael.
He described him as having a camouflage jacket, a ski mask, and obviously the machine pistol stuck out in Michael's mind as well.
Physical evidence is scarce.
They found some shell casings from that Mac 11 machine pistol.
But there's not much else to go on.
The investigators were unable to locate any footprints. There was nothing in the car that was helpful in terms of identifying who the shooter was.
But then, from his hospital bed, injured Michael Braun shares a shocking story. It's not the first time someone's tried to kill his father.
He and his girlfriend were driving in his van, and they noticed smoke coming out of the van.
Wondering what's wrong, Richard Braun pulls over.
They got out of the van, and an explosion occurred. They were very fortunate not to have been killed.
Police can't work out why Richard Braun is the target.
It was a little difficult to understand initially why anyone would want to kill a well-liked businessman who lived in a wealthy neighborhood in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. It didn't fit initially until you really started digging.
This well-liked businessman has a few likes of his own, like a nose for cocaine. Coke keeps Richard sharp. Turns out, Richard needs to be sharp.
A boiler room fraud involves a bank of salesmen in a large open area that are making call after call to potential victims, and they're trying to defraud them and sell them something that is virtually worthless, and they're selling it to them for a large amount of money.
And Richard is running the talent in the boiler room.
The company was actually very successful. They ultimately defrauded investors of more than $10 million.
Unbeknownst to the fraudsters, the feds are onto them.
Richard Braun had worked for several years for a business called Reliance Capital. The FBI was conducting an investigation into the fraud that was being perpetrated by Braun and Bruce Gastworth, who was the owner of Reliance Capital.
Seems Richard's been on quite a tear, earning big money.
His cut or take from the investments that were being made by the victims was substantial.
Well, there was a debt owed to Richard Braun from the company, and it was $400,000. Bruce Gastworth basically refused to pay this.
5 months before he's gunned down, Richard Braun cleans up. He attends regular meetings of Narcoholics Anonymous and tells his partners he's done, and he wants his money.
Braun had represented to acquaintances that he was considering basically turning state's evidence.
Former business partner Bruce Gastworth is looking good for the hit.
Gastworth stood to benefit from the murder of Richard Braun. He eliminated Richard Braun as a potential witness about the fraudulent nature of the business.
But Gastworth is out of reach.
Bruce Gastworth told the Fulton County Police Department that he was at a restaurant at the time of the shooting, and therefore he had an alibi.
From what FBI agent John Kingston and DA Bill McKinnon have seen, the hitman had intel.
Really well planned. He knew when Richard Braun was going to be leaving the house. He was well positioned behind a wooded area.
The cops take notice of the shooter's hardware.
He had a good firearm that was basically going to get the job done no matter what happened, a machine pistol. And those types of things tend to make police believe that it might be a hired hitman.
Meaning the trigger man will be tough to find. But find him they must, if they want to tie Bruce Gastworth to this mob-style murder. It's been 11 years since Atlanta socialite Lita McClinton married Jim Sullivan. But divorce is on the way until Lita gets shot dead at her front door by a flower delivery man.
Everyone who ever met Lita was impressed with her, and Jim Sullivan apparently was too, because after a chance meeting of her at the department store where she worked, he returned and asked her out for a date.
He immediately charmed her with his money and trips and all that he could provide for.
Well, Jim Sullivan was described as being 150 pounds of unbridled ambition and greed.
Jim Sullivan runs a successful liquor distribution company, and for a while, the marriage clicks. But soon, Jim is up to his old tricks.
He began to run around and have affairs.
After that, she packed her belongings into a U-Haul and drove to Atlanta.
Lita files for divorce.
Well, things were not going well for Jim Sullivan in the divorce. In fact, the day that Lita was murdered, there was to be a dispositive motion on the postnuptial agreement. And by all accounts, Sullivan was not expected to win.
Reviewing Sullivan's phone records, Atlanta detective Welcome Harris discovers something unusual.
On the 16th of January, he had received a phone call from Atlanta that was 1 minute in duration within 45 minutes of the initial alarm of her being shot.
Harris can see Sullivan gets a call soon after the murder, but he doesn't know who or where it's from. So he dials the number.
A male answered the phone, and Dennis gave him some type of bogus name, and he said, well, you got the wrong numbers. This is a rest stop. He said, rest stop where? It said up 85, north of Atlanta.
Looking to focus his search, Harris heads up the highway.
We took the most likely route to the telephone, to the rest stop, and it took us approximately 45 minutes to get there.
That's enough happenstance for authorities. They haul Jim in for another talk.
He did not remember the call, and he did not, when confronted with the wife's death, he did not have anything to do with his wife's death.
Most of the people close to Lita, including her parents, suspected, many of them knew in their gut that Sullivan had done the killing, but the police couldn't prove it.
The police can only watch as Jim Sullivan gets busy living the high life. When he marries Sookie Rogers just 8 months later, local cops turn to the feds for help. Special Agent John Kingston of the FBI joins the investigation. He re-interviews Lita's neighbor, Bob Christensen, and uncovers a new piece of intel.
He told me a very interesting piece of information, which is James Sullivan called him 3 days before the murder and asked him whether he'd seen anything suspicious in and around Lita's house.
Kingston takes a long look at those phone records, too.
About the same time he was calling Bob Christensen, actually just about an hour later, he called the Howard Johnson's Hotel in Sandy Springs.
Kingston makes the trip to Sandy Springs and meets the hotel manager.
They've got not only the registration records, but they've got phone records as well. And I noticed there's 3 people in the room. They're from North Carolina, and they're driving a Toyota.
And there's more.
And from room 518, a call was made to Sullivan's home number. At 7:44 a.m., it lasted 2.5 minutes, again from room 518 where these folks are staying in. So I know that they called him and he called them.
Kingston considers what the calls might mean.
These guys came to do an attempt on Lita Sullivan's life. It didn't work out so well. They knocked on her door, she didn't come to it. So now they're trying to get him to find out if anyone saw anything or heard anything or if they've been made.
So Sullivan calls his neighbor.
And then Christensen doesn't know anything at that point, so he calls them back and tells them, hey, you know, you didn't get spotted, so we got to go to plan B and figure out what we're going to do from here.
Kingston brings this new intel to the Fulton County DA, but then the FBI agent hits a snag.
The district attorney had taken the position that he was not going to prosecute Jim Sullivan until he had the identities of all the participants in this crime.
Major Welcome Harris of the Atlanta Police and Special Agent John Kingston of the FBI like Jim Sullivan for the hit, but can't bring a case against him. But then, an unexpected source turns up. Anita Spearman has been beaten to death in her bed. Richard Braun has been killed by a man wielding a machine pistol. Both cases look like contract kills. And in both cases, cops are stumped. Then, another crime calls them out.
Now, there's a knock at the door. I have a small apartment, and there's a couple of guys there.
Doug Norwood is a student, working toward a law degree. The guys knocking claim to be PIs.
They come in and they start telling me that they're looking for a law student. All of a sudden, the older man tried to touch me with a stun gun.
Adrenaline pumping, Doug fights back. The assailant pulls a handgun.
I'm able to brush him down, and he shoots up at me. He shoots me in the back, or it's up under my arm right up here, and the bullet comes out of my chest up here.
Doug's hit. He makes a run for it. The stranger keeps firing.
One of the bullets catches me in the meaty part of my left leg, and it goes completely through my leg. I run across the street, and there's a car parked out in front of a laundromat. It's the only car there.
He pleads for a ride to the hospital, but the car peels off.
And I'm standing there thinking, how bad can my day get? I did not know at the time that they were the ones driving the getaway car.
Doug staggers into a laundromat and hides. Meantime, his assailants vanish. Soon after, Doug's treated at hospital.
And they're trying to stop all this bleeding. I recognized one of the nurses. And I told her, I said, I need you to call somebody for me. Nobody knows I'm up here.
The nurse's reply alarms him.
She goes, well, your Uncle Don's already called up here to check on you. I said, I don't have an Uncle Don.
The only people that know Doug is injured are the two guys trying to kill him.
They bandaged me up the best they could, and then I went into hiding.
Doug reports the shooting. Local authorities throw a little shade on his stranger assault story.
They just could not believe that I did not know who had shot me. And they just kept going over and over, who have you done wrong?
But the investigation stalls, with no arrests. Doug Norwood's nervous, with good reason. A few weeks later, as he's leaving class,
I get in the car, and it's just like you see on television. You crank the car up, and the bomb goes off.
The bombing shakes the campus.
I mean, it was incredibly loud. And I could see the windows were being blown out of the cars that were around me.
Incredibly, Doug escapes injury. Because the bombing happens on their turf, University of Arkansas police join the case.
So they take me down, and I give them a statement. I sit there and I tell them, I said, I swear to you, I do not know who is trying to kill me.
Doug was paranoid, which he should be, because it was a fact. Someone was trying to kill him.
Campus police track Doug Norwood's movements.
And our job was trying to figure out who it was and try to keep him safe while he was on this campus.
Things are quiet for 3 months, but in early 1986, Doug spots someone suspicious.
Of course, I didn't know who he was, but I knew that he didn't fit in. He was parked in the faculty parking area across from the law school. He did not have a faculty sticker. He had a Texas license plate.
Doug alerts Swearingen.
We went outside and got in our unmarked unit and drove to that parking lot. We had to deal with the possibility that he was armed and he may try to fire on us.
Their cop intuition pays off. Swearingen's partner spots a stash of military-grade assault weapons in the back seat of the stranger's ride.
When I looked up at John, he was going like this, in other words, cuffing. So I had lay across the trunk, got his hands behind his back and handcuffed him.
Swearingen takes the man, named Michael Wayne Jackson, in for questioning. But Jackson isn't working alone.
Well, they were a group of misfits, really, and it was like the gang who couldn't shoot straight.
Things aren't going so well for Jim Sullivan since the murder of estranged wife Lita McClinton 3 years earlier. His former mistress, Suki Rogers, whom he married just months after Lita's murder, has filed for divorce.
Some of his close friends in Palm Beach society kept their distance from him.
Suki stunned the court, saying that Jim Sullivan admitted he had wife number one killed. The revelation motivates Lita's parents, Emery and Joanne McClinton, to bring a civil suit of wrongful death against Sullivan.
One of the principal differences between a civil wrongful death case and a criminal murder case is in the civil case, the burden of proof that must be established is the preponderance of the evidence or the greater weight of the evidence.
The case goes before the court in 1994. Suki Rogers' testimony falls on sympathetic ears, and on February 23, 1994, the jury convicts Jim Sullivan of the wrongful death of Lita McClinton.
The result of the civil wrongful death case is we got a $4 million verdict against Jim Sullivan.
Sullivan hires a new team of lawyers. The verdict is overturned by the Florida Supreme Court in 1995 on the grounds that the statute of limitations had passed. The civil suit was simply started too late.
Remember that this murder was committed January 16th of 1987. Justice delayed is justice denied, and that's a long time for anyone to have to wait for justice.
The McClintons turned to the media for help.
The media kept an interest in this case, which in turn kept the case alive. And if the media had not been dedicated to following this case for as many years as they did, who knows what would have happened.
Well, sure enough, one of these TV shows that comes up with an incredible important clue that hands us the break that we've been needing.
Belinda Trahan works for a lawyer in Texas. She tells her employer a shocking story about murder for hire.
She told the attorney she worked for as a receptionist this story. The attorney told his wife the story, and before he could finish telling the story, his wife finished the story. And he says, "How did you know that?" And she says, "I saw it on Extra, the TV show."
The lawyer calls the authorities. The file lands on the desk of Georgia Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Bob Ingram.
In interviewing Belinda, when I heard what she had to say, her detail raised a red flag. Very intricate and specific with names, dates, and places, all leading up to the conclusion that she knew exactly who was involved in this crime.
Belinda Trahan is ready to name names and bring a killer to justice.
And she specifically stated that her boyfriend was the killer.
The revelation puts investigators Bob Ingram and his partner John Lang Jr. on the long road to Texas. A man named Michael Wayne Jackson has been arrested for possession of assault weapons after being intercepted by University of Arkansas police. He is an unlikely assassin, and his contracts come from an unlikely place.
He was hired through an ad in Soldier Fortune magazine.
The Commission of Crime Across State Lines brings the FBI into the mix. Agent Richard O'Connell takes a run at Jackson, and Jackson flips.
He immediately implicated a man named Larry Gray, who was a businessman in Tulsa who had arranged to try to kill Doug Norwood.
Larry Gray is the ex-husband of Doug's friend, Kathy.
Her relationship with Larry was not good at all. They had been living apart various times over the period of time that they'd been married.
O'Connell digs deeper. Mike Jackson tells him someone in Tennessee can make problems go away. The guy that places the ads in Soldier of Fortune.
I went right out and picked up Soldier of Fortune magazine and looked at it.
The advertisements did not come out and specifically say, we will kill someone. However, the wording was such that it left very little to the imagination.
The someone in Tennessee is strip club owner Richard Savage. Savage has recruited several would-be hitmen, including Mike Jackson.
I think most of the contacts that were made with Savage were made through the advertisement that he placed in the Soldier of Fortune magazine.
Investigators find the link between murder victims Anita Spearman and Richard Braun and murder target Doug Norwood. The triggermen are all Richard Savage guys.
Well, they were a group of misfits, really, and it was like the gang who couldn't shoot straight. They tried over and over to kill people, and they failed most of the time.
But not always. Anita Spearman and Richard Braun are both murdered by a star Savage recruit.
Sean Dutray was a young man in his early 20s, largely on his own since he was a teenager. He didn't have a lot of support or family contacts and became part of Savage's circle.
A countrywide dragnet spreads out. In Athens, Georgia, cops get called about a guy skipping on his hotel tab.
The Maryville Police Department had stopped Sean Dutray in a car that was reported stolen.
The car is hot, but inside the car, pay dirt.
In that vehicle, they discovered jewelry, a shotgun, and that they had taken that into evidence. Ran the serial number on the gun prior to destroying it and discovered that it had been stolen in North Palm Beach.
Stolen from the home of Anita Spearman. Cops have their trigger man. Under interrogation, Dutray sings.
And they get enough out of Dutray to make a case on him to arrest him for complicity in the murder.
Agents from the Knox County Sheriff's Office and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms drop the hammer. Savage comes quiet. His gang is rounded up.
Once we had all these different suspects in custody, about 5 different shooters.
The gang that couldn't shoot straight buckles.
They were all pointing the fingers at one another and not admitting any culpability themselves. So the whole thing was a little bit of a he said, she said.
Police locate Savage associate Ron Emmerich, doing time in a Tennessee jail. He's hungry for a deal and says he knows who took out that contract on Anita Spearman. Investigators have spent 10 years trying to pin the execution of Lita McClinton on ex-husband Jim Sullivan. Sullivan has the money to defend himself in the nation's courts and remains a free man. But then one day, the case breaks when a woman named Belinda Trahan comes forward.
Belinda Trahan told us that her former boyfriend, Tony Harwood, told her that he was hired by a Florida millionaire to kill his black wife that lived in Atlanta.
Belinda described Tony to me as just a guy from North Carolina who by trade was a mover, and what she described as just a rugged, roughneck type individual.
Tony Harwood told Belinda that he had moved a millionaire from Macon, Georgia to West Palm Beach.
The millionaire makes Tony an offer. Harwood takes the job. He tells Belinda that despite his repeated attempts, Lita Sullivan will not open her door.
And she said, if you want to get a woman to the door, merely deliver flowers and she'll respond.
Belinda's tip turns out to be right. Right, deadly.
Harwood, after returning the second time, told her that delivering the flowers worked. And Belinda blew him off and said, yeah, right.
Compelled to convince, Harwood takes Belinda on an all-night road trip.
Harwood left North Carolina after the crime, and Sullivan left Florida, and they met at a Denny's between the 2 points. Before departing, Harwood received a folded newspaper from Sullivan containing an envelope with $25,000 that he showed Belinda.
Things are getting too hot for Belinda. She dumps Harwood and lights out for the Lone Star State.
I took a trip to Texas and interviewed Belinda Trahan in person. Tony Harwood had been in touch with Belinda Trahan, and she had his return address in Albemarle, North Carolina. I thought perhaps that she could throw a little bait out there for him in hopes of getting him to talk about the murder on the telephone in the meantime while I was recording the conversation.
But Tony's a crook and smells a trap.
And he merely told her, he said, look, you know, if the police come to you, you don't know anything.
Though Lang knows he's got his shooter dead to rights with Belinda's testimony, he still needs to connect shooter Harwood to contractor Jim Sullivan.
I found out that Tony Harwood had worked at this moving company in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I contacted the owner of the company and found some archived records in his attic. And we went up there, and in the first box that I opened, about the second or third invoice down, there was a contract between North American Van Lines with Tony Harwood as the driver and Jim Sullivan as the mover. So I knew at that time that we had the solid connection.
Tony Harwood is taken down on April 19th, 1998, charged with felony murder.
And as he was coming out of the house, he made the statement, I've been waiting for you guys for a long time.
Harwood pleads to voluntary manslaughter and is sentenced to 20 years.
District Attorney's Office called the Sullivan's attorneys and said, hey, we have the trigger man and we're proceeding with an indictment.
Sullivan was supposed to turn himself in to authorities on a Monday. However, he never did appear.
The hunt for killer Jim Sullivan is on. The ring of assassins assembled by strip club owner Richard Savage has been rounded up. One of the gang, Ronald Emmerich, fills in some blanks.
Savage would receive the calls at the Continental Club, which is the number he had put in the advertisement at Soldier of Fortune magazine as a gun for hire.
The magazine prints ads that offer problem-solving services.
Once he got the calls and decided to accept the job, he would decide which of his contract killers he would use, put some money together for them, put the plan together, and send them on their way.
Emmerich claims he and Sean Dutre were sent to Florida. Emmerich was to handle the business deal, and Dutre was to handle the hit. The client Ronald Emmerich meets none other than Robert Spearman.
And Spearman tells him that he loves his wife, but that she's in a lot of pain, and he wants to alleviate that pain and wants them to take care of it.
He hands Emmerich an envelope stuffed with $20,000.
Emmerich went back to Tennessee with the money from Spearman, and Dutre was left in Palm Beach County to commit the murder.
But Dutre dithers. 2 weeks pass before he makes his move.
The point of entry was through a garage door. It was unlocked, so they gained entry right into the house.
And beats Anita Spearman to death. Ronald Emmerich is shown a photo lineup and asked to identify the man that hired them.
Our photo lineups contain 6 photos of people that look similar to our suspect or who we want picked out. And once we lay it out, Ron Emmerich went right to it and pointed out Spearman as a person he met.
Bob Spearman is arrested.
The sheriff said, we have a warrant for your arrest for the murder of your wife, Anita Spearman, at which time he was arrested. And he appeared to be very shocked. When I put him in the holding cell, he told me, he says, you have the wrong person. And I told him, no, I don't.
Prosecutors lay charges in the machine gun murder of businessman Richard Braun.
We started to piece everything together. We managed to figure out that Dutre was the shooter for the Braun killing.
and they make the conspiracy charge stick to Bruce Gastworth, Braun's business partner, a 40-year sentence.
Gastworth paid $10,000 to have Richard Braun killed. That money was paid to Richard Savage.
Larry Gray, who contracted the hit on Doug Norwood, pays the price. 25 years in the big house. And Norwood wins something else.
I've been married to Kathy now for like 26 years.
Soldier of Fortune magazine is sued by the victims' families for millions.
It's difficult to convict the person who hired the contract killer. You may know who did it, but you can't prove it until you arrest that contract shooter and then ultimately get him to flip on the person who hired him.
During the entire trial, Spearman thought that he was going to be acquitted of the charges. And when the jury came back, I mean, it was very emotional for me.
But Bob Spearman doesn't last long behind bars.
He hung himself in prison. Couldn't escape. And when you look at the whole picture, he could have simply got a divorce, had half the money, and rode off into the sunset with his girlfriend and been alive today. But he lost it all for nothing. For greed.
Richard Savage also died in prison. Larry Gray was released July 16, 2001. Bruce Gastworth won release December 19, 2016. Sean Dutre remains behind bars. Jim Sullivan is on the run. For 11 years, he's evaded American justice, as only a millionaire can. But with the capture and confession of hitman Tony Harwood, Sullivan's days as a free man are numbered. The Fulton County DA's office learns Sullivan may be in Costa Rica.
I obtained a federal fugitive warrant for Mr. Sullivan, charging him with leaving the state of Georgia after being charged in this state with a felony.
We searched for him in Costa Rica. He was not there. He had fled Costa Rica, and we had really no idea where he had gone from there.
The FBI's Mike Green discovers Sullivan has hired a local bartender to drive him into Panama.
They were able to determine that he had fled by commercial airline from Panama City to Caracas, Venezuela.
Once we found that Sullivan had gone to Caracas, he virtually disappeared, and we had no contact with him.
4 years pass, then an unexpected development.
In early April 2002, I received a phone call from our agent that was covering leads for us in the country of Thailand. He called me up and said, "You won't believe it, but we were able to verify through the Thai authorities that Mr. Sullivan had made official entry into Thailand."
Thailand is a big country, so Green employs a familiar tactic.
We featured Mr. Sullivan on America's Most Wanted, and the night that we featured him, I received another phone call from the agent in Thailand.
Sullivan was living with his fourth wife that he had married, and they were living about 100 miles from Bangkok, living down there somewhere near the water.
Sullivan is apprehended and cools his heels in the Lard Yao men's prison in Bangkok for the next year and a half. Finally, the Thai government authorizes the extradition.
When I first met Mr. Sullivan, he made some mention that this was all a lie and a big mistake. He didn't appear to be very happy. I think he realized that the conditions in the Thai prisons compared to the United States prisons are very much different.
Sullivan's 6-year run is done. Green escorts him back to America. The case is airtight, and James Vincent Sullivan is sentenced to jail for life with no parole.
Credit definitely goes with the feds and the Atlanta police and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. The key word is perseverance. They never let it go. They kept pursuing it wherever it needed to be pursued.